I'm Judah. They call us African Americans today. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Benjamin. They call us West Indians now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Levi. They call us Haitians now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Ephraim. They call us Puerto Ricans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Manasseh. They call us Cubans now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Simeon. They call us Dominicans now. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Zebulon. They call us Hondurans and Guatemalans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Gad. They call us Native Americans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Reuben. They call us Seminoles. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Asher. They call us Colombians. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Issachar. They call us Mexicans. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
I'm Naphtali. They call us Chileans and Argentinians. And Deuteronomy 28 fits us. We waking up now.
This Atlas book is called The Atlas of the World. This is a Reader's Digest book. Atlas of the World. Project Editor Joseph L. Gardner. Copyright 1979. This is a map of Mexico in this Atlas book. Many of us know about the Israelites being scattered to the Mexican regions. We never talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it today just to catch you up to a few things regarding our family. The Mexicans are Israelites. And as we look over this map, this is Mexico. Now, most of us don't like to admit that Mexicans are our people, but they are. All right? We understand that all the Mexicans in Mexico are not our people, just like all the people in the United States are not our people. There is a handful of Mexicans who dwell in Mexico who are of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? Going back through their lineage to the 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob, which the son of Jacob would be Issachar or Yashakar. Now, as we go through this map, many of us know people from Mexico, and they tell us about all these different cities. I hear these cities all the time when I talk to brothers and sisters from Mexico. Okay? Now, most of us know about the fame of Mexico that occurred down here. See if I can zoom in. Veracruz, or Tres Zapotes. Tres Zapotes. See that? There's also a place called San Lorenzo, which I do not see. Playa Vincent, Oaxaca. Okay, but all these different places down here are Mesoamerica. Mesoamerica. Just like you have Mesopotamia, this is Mesoamerica. The stonehead sculptures of the Olmec civilization of the Gulf Coast of Mexico was generally within this region, around 1200 BCE and 400 BCE. They were amongst the most mysterious and debated artifacts from the ancient world. A lot of us don't read up on it, but a lot of these ancient heads, some of them were not Israelites. Some of them were Carthaginians. Because of their features, we represent them as being the Olmec rulers. I'll flash a couple of pictures up here so you can see. We all know about the Olmec colossal head. There's approximately about 17 heads in this region. All right. Notice it says Mexico and Guatemala. Guatemala is rather smaller than Mexico, Central America. All right. So I'll look at a few things and show you how Issachar are from the 12 tribes of Israel. But as I had said before, Mexico are our brothers. There are many Israelites who dwell in Mexico. The interesting about these Olmec heads in Mesoamerican culture, each head contained the emotions and the experience and the soul of each head. You can see the thick lips, you can see the oval eyes, you can see the thick nose, and you can see the helmets, right? And you can notice the emotion on the faces that they were travelers from a distant land to leave this signature in this place called Mexico. Now, I may be repeating myself, but again, there were found, I believe, approximately 17 heads. Did I say 12 or 17? I believe it's 17 heads that were found in this region. They look like they were in battle brigade in Mesoamerica. But they vary in different designs. They vary in different patterns. There's some that have jaguar paws hanging over their forehead. So the jaguar represented a political and religious power. And that was in relations to the Mesoamerican cultures. Remember Apocalypto, Mel Gibson's movie? The sign of the jaguar came to be as the end of an age before Esau, the Spaniards, that came to conquer Mexico. It was the end of an age of the Olmec Empire, or the Aztec empires, which the jaguar was a huge signature of change in seasons. The History of the American Indians by James Adair. James Adair published this book in 1709 through 1783, The History of the American Indians. This is page 374, and the title is called General Observations on the North American Indians. Let's drop down to the highlighted area. It reads, the Indians, having for a long time no intercourse with the rest of the world, meaning they were virgins to the rest of the world, and seldom one nation of them with another, their rites and customs are in several respects different. But as they agree in essentials through the whole extent of the American world, such agreement is apparently owing to tradition and the usage of their ancestors before they were subdivided as at present. Uniformity cannot be attributed to chance. Let's go over here. It reads, let's read the highlighted area on the next page. The reason they are more earnest than the rest of mankind in maintaining that divine law of equal freedom and justice, I apprehend, is the notion imbibed from their supposed Hebrew ancestors of the divine theocracy, and that inexpressibly abhorrence of slavery, which must have taken place after their captivity by the Assyrians or the Babylonians. So James Adair knows that they came from the east. And when they came from the east, they came here to get away from the wicked ways of Babylon. And so that made them virgins to keeping the laws of the Most High, but they soon went off. But they soon started following idol worship while they were here. This is page 228 of James Adair. It reads at the top here. I'll start at the top just to give you an understanding of what it's talking about. It says, these writers report also that the Mexicans sacrificed to the idol Halak, their god of water, to give them seasonable rains for their crops, and they tell us that the high priest was anointed with holy oil. That's what the high priest did in Israel. And dressed with bountiful ornaments, like the pomegranates, peculiar to himself when he officiated in his sacred function, that he was sworn to maintain their religion, rights, and liberties, according to their ancient law, and to cause the sun to shine, and all their vegetables to be properly refreshed with gentle showers. If we throw down the monkish idol god of water, meaning do away with that idol worship that they were doing, check this out. It says, we here find a strong parody of religious customs and ceremonies between the pretended prophets and high priests of the present northern Indians and the ancient Mexicans. But the two were brethren, and they were the same. But they drifted away from the Most High, which allowed them to drift away from each other. And then they started warring with each other. Page 84 of James Adair. Let's read this at the bottom that I got highlighted about the indigenous Indians, who also included the Mexicans. It reads, had the 9 tribes and a half of Israel, which were carried off by Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. You can read about that in the Apocrypha, 2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 40 through 41. Going back up, it says, and settled in Media, continued there long. It is very probable that by intermarrying with the natives, this is what people don't like to hear, but this happened, that by intermarrying with the natives, and from there, and what natives is it talking about? Of Assyria and Media. And from there, natural fickleness and proneness to idolatry and the force of example they would have adopted and bowed before the gods of the Medes and the Assyrians and carried them along with them. But there is not a trace of this idolatry among the Indians. The severe afflictions they underwent in captivity doubtless humbled their hearts, talking about when they were in Assyria, and reclaimed them from the service of the calves and of Balaam to the true divine worship, a glimpse of which they still retain, and that the first settlers came to America before the destruction of the first temple may be inferred, as it is certain both from Philo and Josephus, that the second temple had no cherubim. To reflect yet greater light on the subject, I shall here and add a few observations on the Indian supposed religious cherubic emblems and cherubical names of their tribes, and from whence they and the early heathens may be supposed to have derived them. So it goes down and it talks about the bull, the lion, the man, and the eagle. You read about this in Ezekiel. But they swapped out the lion for the jaguar or the panther, and the bull for the buffalo. So all of these were swapped out, and this is why you see those poles that the Indian would make. It talks about that in the book of Numbers as well, that they made these poles with animal heads. So this is going right back to the scriptures, what they were doing in the Americas. The Mexicans, the indigenous Indians of North and Central and South America. They were all one of the same. But James Adair is telling you how they came to the Americas. And he's using 2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 40, and verse 40 and 41. I believe you can read down to verse 48. It tells you all of it. Now, a lot of people don't like to believe the Apocrypha just because of this one verse right here. They don't like to include our brothers who were scattered to the Americas before Judah, Benjamin, and Levi got here. But they were already here. And some Judah, Benjamin, and Levi came over here. Some of them came with the Carthaginians and Zebulun and Asher. But a lot of the Israelites of Ephraim had already came over here, as we see this. So this is in the book of Sirach. I want to show you how Ephraim fell away. And let's go to the 47th chapter of Sirach. And let's start at verse 21. Sirach chapter 47, verse 21. It says, so the kingdom was divided, and out of Ephraim ruled a rebellious kingdom, This was during the days after Solomon, when his sons ruled. But the Most High will never leave off his mercy, neither shall any of his works perish, neither will he abolish the posterity of his elect. And the seed of him that loveth him he will not take away. Wherefore he gave a remnant unto Jacob, and out of him a root unto David. Remember that remnant of Jacob. That remnant is supposed to come out of captivity. It reads, Thus rested Solomon with his fathers, and of his seed he left behind him Rehoboam, which is Solomon's son, even the foolishness of the people, and one that had no understanding, who turned away the people through his counsel. And we see a likeness of that with the mind of the rulers of today. Rehoboam had one of those type of minds, just a crazy, mixed up mind that had no sense to his understanding. There was also Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin, and showed Ephraim the way of sin. So Ephraim, the whole 10 tribes of Ephraim, fell away from sin from one king. Just like it says in the book of Psalms, as the king is, so are the people. So that happened with Jeroboam. Ephraim fell away from the Most High and went into sin. And their sins were multiplied exceedingly, that they were driven out of the land. For they sought out all wickedness till the vengeance came upon them. So this is what happened to Ephraim. So vengeance came upon them. This is when we went into captivity under the Assyrians, under the Babylonians. This is when all this happened. And people in the truth still fight against the fact that the tribes of Ephraim fell away and started mixing with the other peoples. If you look at today, we have the same issue today. This is why you got guys like Dr. Umar Johnson constantly getting on brothers for stepping out and getting with other races. Okay, so this thing was going on even then. This is nothing new. You know, when we went into sin, we always stepped out and started dabbling with the other nations. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 12. And this is where Ephraim went off. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 28. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 28. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And he set one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan. And this thing became a sin. This is how they went off. Idolatry. For the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan. Instead of going to Jerusalem 3 times a year, they started going to Dan. And they started worshiping a calf, just like the children of Israel in the wilderness. So they started doing the same thing. And they were doing it over here in America, the same thing. They started worshiping a buffalo. That's why when the so-called white man came over here, he slaughtered all their buffalo. They looked to that buffalo for food. They looked to that buffalo for clothing. They looked to that buffalo for heat and season, signs of the seasons when they would flock, when their flocks would move to the west or to the east. And he made an house of high places and made priests to the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. That's a sin. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered upon the altar, so did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priest of the high places which he had made. So this is when Israel went off, totally went off. They were doing things that tampered with the laws that the Most High set up with Levi, all right? And then brought in idolatry. So all the tribes went off doing this, even the tribe of Issachar. They were a part of this. This is a book called Light and Truth, the Bible in Ancient and Modern History, Universal History of the Colored and the Indian Race. This was written, printed in 1844. Let's jump over to page 270. Let's drop down here, second paragraph. Regarding the Indians being Ephraim, several prophetic traits of character given of the Hebrews do accurately apply to the Aborigines of America. See that? Intemperance may be first noted. Isaiah, writing about the time of the expulsion of Israel from Canaan and about to predict their restoration, says Isaiah 28, verse 1. This is a soundbite. Woe to the crown pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, which includes Issachar. Ephraim was a noted name of the 10 tribes of Israel. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, because even Issachar, which we call Mexicans today, or the Aztecs of yesterday, they would get drunk, just like the Native American Indians. They had the same traits. If they got fire water in them, they acted a mess. The drunkards of Ephraim shall be trodden underfoot, for all tables shall be full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. And that's what happened. This is why the Most High sent the Spaniards over here, to conquer and destroy the indigenous Indians of America, and then brought smallpox to decimate them. 10 Tribes of Israel, the true history of the North American Indians. The Descendants of These 10 Tribes by Timothy R. Jenkins, 1885. Page 37. Page 37. It reads, "From this representation it appears that the posterity of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are still the Most High's peculiar people, that he brought them with a mighty arm from Egypt by the way of the wilderness and through the Red Sea, that he gave them laws and ordinances to which he commanded the most strict obedience, and in case of failure and willful disobedience, the severest curses were denounced upon them. They were to be divided into 2 nations, Judah and Ephraim, to be scattered among the Gentiles to the north and the south, to the east and the west. They were to be driven by the hand of the Most High to the utmost parts of the earth, into Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, which are all African or black nations, Hama, and into the western regions and the land of Sinim, which is China. They were to serve gods, the workmanship of men's hands of wood and stone. Israel is heavily charged with stubborn disobedience and is threatened with being cut off suddenly, as in one day, and with great and accumulated distress and anguish. They are expressly charged with the sin of drunkenness, there it is again, as adding drunkenness to thirst as the prevailing sin, or their prevailing sin. So this is what happened to Israel. We've been scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. First, Israel, the 10 tribes were scattered, which is Ephraim. Then Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were scattered. This is from the book Origins of the American Indians, European Concepts, 1492 to 1729. On page 88, it reads, where it says, although Medina, 1682, thought the South Americans and Yucatans were descendants of the Gentile Ictan, father of Ophir, the Mexicans are originally of the 10 tribes captured by Salmanasar, and of the family of Issachar, whom the Indians recognized as their special ancestor. Now, there was a lot of back and forth arguments with this being true, but when you look at the name Aztecs, when you break that down, it means Yahawah, which is Issachar. Aztecs breaks down to Issachar. So even if they were arguing and disputing the name of the Mexicans as being Issachar, Aztecs in itself breaks down what Issachar is, which you can find a definition of Issachar in the book of Genesis and the prophetic meaning of it in Genesis chapter 49. All right, this book is called Hebrewisms of West Africa by Joseph J. Williams. We've read about this before. It reads on page 128, yet Deru subsequently admits certain seemingly Hebraic customs among the American Aborigines. Thus, after rejecting the claims of two Hebrew practices in America, he concedes other souvenirs of Jewish history and rites of the Mosaic Law seem to have been real and to have actually existed among a few of America's aboriginal nations. Thus are the Yucatecs, which is Issachar, said to have had a tradition according to which they originally came from the Far East, passing through the sea, which the Most High made dry for them, or held still the waters, which is in 2 Ezra chapter 13. And again, we may close this chapter with the remark that the Mexicans celebrated the Israelite feast of the New Year, which comes in March/April, which is the month of Abib, and had their festivity of the remission of sins and the use of sacred unctions as the Israelites. See that? Because we know Issachar is not a Jew. Issachar is his own tribe. The Jews were considered Judeans. It's like if you went to Texas, the people of Texas would be called Texans. If you went to California, the people of California would be called Californians. So the Jews were not called Jewish, they were called Judeans. Never did they call themselves Jewish. And the tribe of Issachar was the tribe of Issachar. Period. Tribe of Benjamin was the tribe of Benjamin, or Benjamin. Naphtali was the tribe of Naphtali. All right? Each tribe were their own. They were a nation within a nation. Let's go to page 131. Let's read the bottom caption. It reads, Indians were descended from the 10 tribes. I say it again. Indians were descended from the 10 tribes. Now, the original Indians were of a dark-skinned people where they looked like an African American. Over time, they started to gradually reduce in stature and in color. So a lot of light-skinned Indians are actually Israelites who come from the progenitor of the Indians who were Israelites. Indians were descended from the 10 tribes of Israel, and that an exodus of Jews from Jerusalem took place prior to the birth of Hamashiach and carried away the records, a part of which was the Book of Mormon. We heard about this Book of Mormon. So a quarter of it is true and 2/3 of it is false. This book, it is asserted, was discovered by the prophet Joseph Smith in the side of a hill called Cumara in Ontario County, New York. Confessions of John Doyle, Lee, Danite, New York. It could have been just a few inserts, and he turned the whole book into a religious book. But it was never a religious book. It was just documentation of where the tribes went, which was into the Americas. It's interesting because I have been asked, where were the Mexicans prior to 1960? And I'll tell you, prior to the Civil Rights Movement and the Immigration Act of 1965, the U.S. had relatively few Latino immigrants, all right? This is what a lot of people don't understand. Mass migrations accelerated after the Civil Rights Movement. And most of it started taking place around the 1980s. During that period, the most effective resistance against white supremacy and injustice came from black-led movements, like the Black Panthers, and different types of organizations. The ability of many immigrant groups to migrate to the U.S. in significant numbers was largely due to the efforts of black organizations in reshaping laws and policies. That's why you're seeing a lot of Mexicans and different nationalities today. They got here off the backs of the blacks fighting against the Caucasians, the Edomites. and civil rights. In that scripture in Deuteronomy chapter 28, we fit the curses because it says the stranger that come amongst you will get higher than you. That happened. And the same thing happened with the Asians. They had low numbers prior to World War II. They had low numbers until the civil rights movement took off. And that's when immigration allowed in mass amounts from Asia around 1970. Latinos was also added to the census around that same time. And so we often ask, how did they identify back then? This is important because Mexicans who were dominant Latino demographics in the U.S. at that time were generally classified as white for census purposes, except for a short period between 1930 to 1940 during the Chicano period, when Mexicans had an option, most of them related to being black. From a higher perspective, the two majority races were black and white during that time, which is why that was in the history books. It isn't that the other races weren't there. They were there, they just had to option out their identity at that time. For all of you who wanted to know what Montezuma looked like, this is a picture, a drawing of Montezuma during the 15th century. Okay? This is Montezuma. You can see that he's not a Caucasian man. Montezuma. And let me show you what the city of Mexico looked like in Veracruz. This is what the city looked like before the Spaniards came. See how beautiful it was? This is how the Aztecs lived. Right on the coast. See that? These are the neighbors of the Aztecas in the Yucatan. These are the Peruvians, the Incas. Look at their complexions, look at their features. These are the Peruvians. Look at the garments. The Peruvians. Look at the fringes. These are the Indians of the state of New York. This is what they found in the state of New York. Notice how they look. Notice their dress attire. These are indigenous Indians of the Americas.